Buongiorno. Good afternoon, persons of quality. Welcome to the first installment in this semester's Aquinas lecture series material. Our presenter today is Dr. Shelley Rothschafer, who teaches Spanish here at Aquinas College. And really, I should say presenters, because she has some people who will be presenting with her. The title of their presentation is Serving in an Engaged Community, Latino Grand Rapids. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Rothschafer and the other presenters whom she will introduce.
And pardon my cold, please. I might have a coughing attack. So, thank you. Bienvenidos for coming and listening to us today. What this project involves is fall semester 2015. My Engaging Hispanic Grand Rapids class had a twofold focus. First, we had a literature component which addressed issues regarding immigration, assimilation, and adaptation of the Latino community in the United States. In that component, we read two main texts. First, Reina Grande's memoir, The Distance Between Us, and she is a Mexican-American woman and focuses on the idea of how education got her to where she is now today. The other text was Carlos Ayer. He is a Cuban-American, and also his text, Learning to Die in Miami, is a memoir as well. And once again, the same idea of how education moves you and helps individuals attain what they want. The second component of this class was a service learning component. And all of my students volunteered and were mentors in either one of two places. There are two amazing schools in the Latino barrio of Grand Rapids. And if you're not familiar of where this area is, the Latino area of Grand Rapids is along the corridor of Granville Avenue, Hall Street, and Franklin Avenue. And the one school that the students were mentors is Cesar Chavez Elementary School. And this is a really unique program that they have there. It's in the Grand Rapids public school system, and it's a transitional bilingual school. So when kids enter in kindergarten, they have a curriculum in Spanish. But by the time that they graduate out of 5th grade, they're transitioning into an English curriculum. The reason being is the middle school, the 6th grade class that they go into in the Grand Rapids public school system is an English-only school. And so they need to have the skills to sufficiently understand the subject material. The other school that students volunteered is called San Juan Diego Academy, and it is an elementary and middle school in the Catholic Diocese of Grand Rapids. And the interesting focus of that school is that the majority, if not all of the students, are from Spanish-speaking families. Many of them are recent immigrant families to the U.S., and yet the curriculum is all in English. So what were my students doing while they were there? They were acting as student aides and mentors within these classrooms and helping translate or work bilingually with these children. So today we have different mini projects of 4 different of my students. And first, Azra will speak of a more philosophical approach of what is service learning and what does it mean. And she will explain that in context of her work at Cesar Chavez Elementary School. Then Alicia Gaitan Halberg and Erica Utter are going to do more of a creative approach because they also wrote bilingual poetry regarding their experience when they were kids and teachers that really influenced them. And they're going to compare that to their work at the schools where they were mentors. And then lastly, Hannah Acosta will speak on her perspective of what, or redefine what service learning means, and then give her perspective of working at Cesar Chavez as well. So please help me welcome our first student speaker, Azra Fazil.
Thank you, Dr. Rothschafer, for the introduction. My name is Azra Fazil. I plan on graduating next spring, in the spring of 2017. I'm a biology and Spanish double major. So that's what I study here. So the piece that I'm going to be reading later is called The Bridge Between Theory and Application, Service Learning. But first I want to talk a little bit more about the school that I was volunteering at last semester, and I'm still there every week this semester. I go in every Tuesday, and I volunteer in Mrs. Betancourt's classroom every Tuesday about 9:15 to 11:15. And so usually what I do is I just work individually with the kids, like Dr. Rothschafer mentioned. We do a lot of reading and writing exercises, especially right now as the kids are progressing through the school year. We're doing a lot of diction exercises. So basically, I pull one or two students aside and I'll state some words with two to three syllables, and then they'll just have to write those out on the board. And right now we're also transitioning into sentence structures, so I'm having the kids write a few of the sentences in Spanish also. So also these are some of the guiding principles up on the screen there. So as mentors, it's our job to kind of help bring out these qualities in the children. So first with ethical behavior, we will treat each other, our students, and our community in an ethic and respectful way. We'll always do the right thing in the right way, and we will develop trust. Openness, we will become a more open system. We'll share our knowledge as well as our uncertainties. Open, honest systems will improve and overcome obstacles. Service, we exist to serve. We will have an attitude of service to our students, our parents, and our community. Productivity, we will work smarter and coordinate our efforts toward a common mission and purpose. Capacity, we will be committed to student and adult learning. And accountability and expectations. We will hold ourselves, our colleagues, and our students to high standards. Adults and students alike arise to high expectations. So once again, all of these qualities combine to bring out this mission statement, which is to ensure that all students are educated, self-directed, and productive members of society. So by bringing out the qualities that I mentioned, by helping the students bring out those qualities, we're all working towards this common goal here at GRPS and with us as Aquinas participants in that mission. So there's a photo of me and the students. This was taken a few weeks ago, and it was really hard to get them to all kind of stand still for this photo. It took like 5 tries, and a lot of them came out blurry, but this is the best I could get. All right, so my paper, The Bridge Between Theory and Application. The typical mentality of a student attending college is that it is necessary to finish school in order to secure a good job and in turn make a comfortable living. The idea among young adults is that the greatest benefits will come to those who complete the most rigorous academic programs, ones that promise to place students in well-paying fields. Nevertheless, the students that have been fortunate enough to participate in service learning programs quickly realize that this idea is overrated. In fact, personal satisfaction and various other benefits are not awarded to those with the highest salaries, but to those who decide to make a difference in the community without any compensation at all. Service learning is a new focus on experimental education. With any new approach to experiential education arises the question of how to define it in a way that makes it easy to understand and implement in the school system. Researchers and experts in education have attempted to create a specific definition for service learning that differentiates it from other experiential learning programs. Quoting Furco, "Today, however, the term service learning has been used to characterize a wide array of experiential education endeavors, from volunteer and community service projects to field studies and internship programs. By perusing schools of service program brochures, one realizes that the definitions for service learning are as varied as the schools in which they operate." After much debate, it has been agreed upon that service learning is a unique experience that emphasizes the mutual benefit between the provider and the receiver of the service. Quoting Furco, service learning programs must have some academic context and be designed in a way that ensures that both the service enhances the learning and the learning enhances the service. Service learning combines an academic context with active participation in the community. Through collaboration with community partners, the student applies what is learned in class in order to resolve problems and offer hope to those in need of it. The members of the community also benefit from the service because they receive help, direction, and guidance from the students involved. Furthermore, reflection is a crucial aspect that puts the learning in service learning. The textbook used by students enrolled in the course, Engaging Hispanic Grand Rapids at Aquinas College, highlights the process of reflection within service learning. Quoting Chris, reflecting on experience is at the center of service learning courses, and faculty guide students as they integrate intellectual knowledge with community interactions through the process of reflection. It is important for students to think about what was done and to reflect upon which part of the project affected them personally. Doing so, the student is able to learn something from their participation in the community. Service learning requires that the student is conscious of his or her actions in the community. Building a house or serving food at the homeless shelter are very commendable acts, but the value of these actions is amplified when the student knows exactly why they are doing and what they are learning along the way. Quoting Kress, it also allows us to compare initial goals and objectives with eventual outcomes to assess what we have accomplished. Reflection is a way to evaluate the progress that a student has made with their service learning project. After reflecting upon what one has achieved or not yet achieved, there are two possible outcomes. The student can either feel reinforced by his or her progress and feel motivated to continue with their service, or the student may realize that changes need to be made in order to maximize the expected outcomes of service learning and to improve the overall experience for everyone involved. Although it has already been established that a key component of service learning is an academic setting, such as a classroom, service learning also prepares students to function in an environment outside of the school. Active participation in service learning programs encourages students to effectively share ideas, work in groups, and resolve conflict. While working with minorities and people subjected to oppression, the student must reflect upon matters of justice, civil rights, and ethics. This type of reflection stimulates a higher level of thinking known as critical thinking, which is a skill that is demanded by employers in absolutely every field. In a very detailed research investigation, a group of educators at the Universidad Abierta Interamericana support the idea that service learning makes a student more prepared to enter the labor force. Service learning practices are effective in that they develop competence in the labor force in terms of working in teams, communicating effectively, and taking on the responsibilities that come with personal initiative. Service learning develops capabilities that will give students a competitive advantage when searching for employment. In conclusion, service learning is the best possible bridge between theories taught in the classroom and the application of these theories in the real world. Service learning enriches the academic experience because it immerses students in the community in order to try and improve it. Reflection gives the project a purpose. It also helps students understand and appreciate their role as service providers in the community. Working together with partners of the community, the students acquire communication and collaboration skills that can be utilized in the profession of their choice. Students that have dedicated themselves to service learning reach higher levels of personal satisfaction and intellectual wealth in comparison to those students whose sole objective in life is a high income. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Alicia, and I plan to graduate this May. I am a Spanish major, bio minor, and I recently made a career change, and I'm committed to pursuing a BSN nursing in a nursing program next year. And my portion of the presentation is more about academic inspiration. And when I volunteered at San Juan Diego Academy. And what I noticed at San Juan Diego is that their mission or their motive is to improve the academic outcomes for Latino children. Their motto is they're a college-going culture, and I volunteered at 8 a.m. On So in the beginning it was on Fridays, but then it moved to Wednesdays. I volunteered in the morning, and every morning they would start off with a morning prayer, which led into a daily mantra, and their mantra was, "Si se puede, I will succeed, I will graduate from San Juan Diego Academy, and I will go to college." And I really found that very inspiring, that from a very young age, from first grade all the way to 8th grade, they're putting in these children's minds that they can succeed, they have the tools for success, and they can go to college. And I found that very inspiring. And how that tied into our class was we read a book, as our professor noted, as Dr. Ross Schaefer said. It was called Una distancia entre nosotros by the novelist Reina Grande. And the book is about her point of view from immigrating to the U.S. as a child. She mentions in her novel about an influential professor she had while attending University of California, Santa Cruz, when she was pursuing a writing degree. And that little theme of being inspired by influential teacher while pursuing higher education was I guess the context of when we wrote our influential teacher poem, which I will read to you today. And we originally wrote our poems in Spanish, and what I'll be presenting to you is the English translation. So mine goes, "I was 8 years old from the time I learned about the bright stars in the sky, how they died a long time ago, but we can still see their light, how certain stars make shapes in the night that tell stories about animals, myths, and warriors. I learned about simple machines, mechanical devices like levers, pulleys, and wedges, how physics makes the world turn, whispering words like energy and force. I learned about the human body, organs, blood, and skin, how magical our body's skills to metabolize, reproduce, and self-heal. When I was 8 years old, I learned about all these things. Science became my friend, but I was told that women and science do not mix. I was told that science is for boys. I should learn about other things instead of dreaming about the stars in ourselves. My teacher in 4th grade was a wonderful lady. She could read my mind and see the scientific dreams that floated in my head. She told me, do not be afraid to fall in love with science. Be determined and brave. Science will never leave you to the end of days." My poem was about a teacher I had in 4th grade. She was very influential. Her name was Mrs. Larva, and I am still in contact with her today. And that sort of inspired my poem. And here's a picture of me at San Juan Diego, and then on the side is a banner with their "Si se puede" motto. And I really enjoyed my time at San Juan Diego. It was a great learning opportunity.
Hi, I'm Erica Utter. I am a 5th-year senior studying political science, international studies, and Spanish. I also had a focus in women's studies over the past few years. I am planning on graduating in May of this year. I had the opportunity to volunteer in the kindergarten class this year, which was an experience full of both lessons and laughter. Kids can be very inventive and creative, and I had the opportunity to see them interact and experience all of their different lessons throughout the day, as I had changed my time several times based on the needs of the teacher. So I was there for religion, for math, for reading and science, and for a variety of other experiences with the kids. I had the opportunity to help in all of these different areas, helping them learn how to read and recognize letters. I was also able to work with them on measurements and learning how to measure things individually. Seeing the impact that we had in the classroom was a really strong experience, and it really put in perspective the impact that teachers have had on our own lives. And so when we were writing these poems, I actually thought back to my 1st grade teacher, as we will read through in a moment, and I can tell you a little bit more about her at the end as well. As you can see, I have both the English and Spanish versions, as Alicia did as well. I'll be reading the English version today. My 1st grade teacher was my favorite. Mrs. Dunn was always ready to listen. She was supportive and kind, and all of my favorite things about her can be summed up in one of her lessons. One autumn day, Mrs. Dunn brought boxes of rice to class. We were instructed to sit at our desks with our hands in our laps. She put a large scoop of rice in front of each of us, instructing us to make shapes. Every single form was different, from animals to families and smiling faces. When we were finished, Mrs. Dunn walked through the aisles, taking a few grains from each picture, leaving holes in the shapes and the smiles. Oh, there it goes. She said that each picture represented the class and each grain a student. For the class to be complete, all had to be included. Each grain had a part in the picture, as each student had a role in the class. All were equally important, no matter how small one appeared at first glance. As the message began to sink in, Mrs. Dunn walked back through the aisles, redistributing the grains she had taken so we could reconnect the shapes and the smiles. She placed paper and glue on our tables, instructing us to attach the rice to the paper. We worked carefully to transfer the images to create a lasting reminder. With a few grains of rice, we received a lifelong lesson. In that classroom and the world, we all had a role, and it was significant. It is a rare experience as a child to be told and shown that you matter, that both your absence and your presence mean something, that you have an impact on something greater. It was also a lesson on changing the world. The more pieces that were missing, the more people who decided not to take part, the lesser the impact of the mission. One person is significant, but the absence of many is more problematic. It leaves holes in ideas and movements, preventing growth in a way that is systematic. This lesson was the first time I realized I could make an impact, that I could affect positive change. Both my presence and absence meant something, and I had the power to do it my way. Working in classrooms, we have this great opportunity. We can aid children to see things in a new light, even to see themselves differently. Our words and actions are not arbitrary. They can have a lasting influence. What we need to do is decide what kind of lasting impact we'll have and how we will build these grains of knowledge. Mrs. Dunn, the teacher that I wrote this about, actually passed away within a year after teaching that class, so I was her last, one of her last students. She passed away due to cancer. But all of her students really remember her in this very positive way and the impact that she had on them long after she was gone. We were talking about her at her high school graduation, and we've talked about her like in the summers going back from college. So the impact that we have on children, even in those very early years, can affect them throughout the rest of their lives. Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Hannah Acosta. I am a senior, and I'm going to be graduating in May with a degree in Business Administration, Communication, concentration in Marketing, and a minor in Spanish. I very much enjoyed my time volunteering at Cesar Chavez Elementary with Mrs. Betancourt, who Azra also volunteered with. She's actually an Aquinas alum through the Master of Education program, and it was honestly a privilege to be able to work alongside her. First, I just want to talk about exactly what did I do while I was at Cesar Chavez. So I worked along the same side of the same kids that Azra did, and had a wonderful opportunity to learn about all their little quirks and things that make them tick and figure out the best ways that they learn and what kind of environment really works best for them. I, of course, have my favorites, as teachers aren't supposed to, but I think that they all do secretly. Alexandra, Dulce, and Liliana. Those were my three girls that I kind of stuck with. And it's funny because as a student, I don't think that we realize how far some students are apart in different levels of their learning. And so it was very interesting for me because Dulce would always catch on to things very quickly, whereas Liliana was a little bit slower to catch on to things. She was wanting to crack the jokes and stuff, so it was harder to get her to focus, but it was also a very big honor to be able to work with her and see her growth over the time of that semester. So this is just a picture of Cesar Chavez Elementary. Now, the paper that I wrote was about service learning, my definition of it, but also what it means to be a change agent in a community. Now, being a change agent isn't just stepping into a community and saying, my way is better than your way, and this is how we're going to run things. It's about learning about how that community functions best and what you can do to help improve that and to kind of assimilate to it and become a part of it. So service learning definition to me is really going into a community, using your own talents for the better of that community, but along the way you truly find that you're benefiting yourself by engaging in this community as well. Charity versus solidarity. This was a concept that came up in the book Learning Through Serving that we read as a part of our coursework in engaging Hispanic Grand Rapids. And this is really about eliminating the idea of superiority and inferiority between the two groups, coming into a community and being equals with them, rather than coming in and saying, I'm coming here to do charity work, I'm here to help you. No, I'm here to work alongside of you and see progress in this community, and in this case, it was in this kindergarten class. So I've had a variety of different experiences with service learning at Aquinas through the service learning program and going on trips that way, and also in my own time, but this was definitely one of the most rewarding experiences. So now I will read my paper. On the first day of our class, Dr. Ratschaffer asked us, in your opinion, what is service learning? For me, this concept is nothing new. In fact, in many capacities, it was a part of my upbringing. For this reason, I inevitably selected a college that places an emphasis on the importance of service learning. This is a unique concept in comparison to other types of learning. It creates an opportunity for a student to use their skills and abilities for something much greater than themselves. It also presents an opportunity to experience something different, such as another culture. Service learning has a variety of definitions, as well as challenges and benefits for all who are involved. It is an opportunity to create change agents and teach us how to be leaders in our own communities. This is the Spanish version up on the screen. The book Learning Through Serving explains the different definitions and ideas in regards to the concept of service learning. The text defines service learning as an opportunity for students to participate in activities or services in a community with academic intentions and goals. It also incorporates an important component of reflection. It is because of my experiences with this type of learning that I define service learning as an opportunity to serve another person or group of people in the way that is in the best interest of the entire group. I had the incredible experience of participating in service learning, especially at Aquinas College. For example, this semester, I had the privilege of serving in the classroom of Mrs. Irene Betancourt, AQ Master of Education alumna. This is a kindergarten class at Cesar Chavez Elementary. At Cesar Chavez Elementary, they have a traditional bilingual program where the students begin kindergarten learning in Spanish, and by 5th grade, they are learning in both English and Spanish. They teach in the manner in order to be respectful of the student's culture and native tongue. They also consider that as a part of the Grand Rapids Public Schools, when the students enter 6th grade, the program is completely in English. Another aspect of service learning is the difference between students, change agents, and implementing charity or solidarity. Charity gives the impressions that one group is greater in comparison to the other. It creates an environment of superiority and inferiority. The correct point of view is the idea of solidarity. This signifies that those who are receiving service are equal to those who are serving. It is a mutual benefit. In general, my empathy and compassion for others has grown tremendously because of my participation in service learning opportunities. I am able to see the problems that exist in various communities all over the United States, and specifically some in our very own neighborhoods in Grand Rapids. For example, the community surrounding Cesar Chavez Elementary. As I mentioned before class begun, Dr. Ratschaffer asked us, in your opinion, what is service learning? I believe it has an academic aspect, but also a sentimental aspect. It is something that affects the everyday lives of those who receive service. It has the power to change minds, fill hearts, and nourish souls. It is also able to inspire students to take leadership opportunities and to be change agents in our world. So how can you be a change agent in our community? Now, specifically at Aquinas, there are so many different opportunities to volunteer and to serve. For example, I've had the privilege of being the student leader for the New Orleans service learning trip for 2 years now, and that was very interesting to me to go to Cesar Chavez because it was a very similar neighborhood, very similar communities that I was stepping into. But specifically with the Hispanic community, you can take this Engaging Hispanic Grand Rapids course. You can volunteer at Cesar Chavez Elementary. You don't have to be a student in this class to do that. It's very easy to fill out the volunteer form, and I'm sure Dr. Ratschafer, any of us who took the class, would be happy to get you connected with a teacher who truly does need the help. That was one thing that I really enjoyed about volunteering was I really felt like what I was doing there was making a difference. There were certain students that I would work with every time when I went in on math, and it was very rewarding to be able to see their progress, like I mentioned before. So the types of things that they would need at Cesar Chavez might be translate conferences, work with after-school programs for students, and help reading in the kindergarten class. I was hoping to be able to volunteer in the same class that I did last semester, but I think she's still in need of help because I won't be able to go in anymore. So if you're interested in that opportunity, I'd love to get you connected. It's a wonderful group of kids. I'm sure Ezra could tell you all about them too. Another opportunity might be to volunteer at the Hispanic Center, but overall, very rewarding experience, and I hope that hearing from the four of us inspires you to kind of get connected in this community as well. Thank you.
We will have some time for Q&A. If you have a question, please raise your hand. All questions need to go through the microphone. So please raise your hand, and when I get to you, you can ask your question.
Thank you very much. I'm wondering what was the difference between your expectation before you went and then what actually happened in your experience? Did it match up? Was it different? Was it a little bit the same, a little bit different? So that's my question.
So this is the third time that I've taught this course, and it's taught every other year. And the first year, I also volunteered. And one of the surprises that I had when I went in was I thought that I would perhaps only be working with one type of child, and thinking that it might predominantly be children that are recent immigrants from Mexico. But that's false. And in this community, it's not just children from Mexico or Mexican-American children, but our Latino community is really diverse. There are quite a few people from the Caribbean, whether Cuban-American or Dominican, and then also from Central America. So that was one thing that I was pleasantly surprised that to be reminded that our Latino community in Grand Rapids is much more diverse than many people think.
Going into this experience, I honestly thought I would be working a lot with the teacher, like helping her staple papers, helping her get paperwork together, kind of hanging up classroom decorations and stuff like that. But I was really surprised at how much she actually trusted me to work with the students one-on-one, and she would kind of explain her lesson plan to me and just turn it over to me to allow myself an opportunity to work with the students that really needed help the most. Some of the students that she couldn't always get to because she had such a big class. So just seeing how much she actually let me do with the kids and how much time I got to spend with them one-on-one, that was really exceeded my expectations.
I'd really have to agree with Azra because Mrs. Betancourt really did, let us take charge in the classroom at times. Like, I remember one day she had a sub. She wasn't there that day, and the sub didn't speak any Spanish. So when I stepped into the classroom that afternoon, it was complete chaos for a moment there, because though some of the students are, at a point where they understand, though they may not be able to effectively communicate back in English, it was kind of hard for that teacher at the time to be able to give direction. So then that responsibility really fell on top of me, where I didn't necessarily want to be the authoritative figure that afternoon, but that kind of became my responsibility. So I think that going into it, I just thought, this is going to be so much fun, and it was, but, I'm going to get to play with the kids, I'm going to go to recess, I'm going to eat lunch with them, and kind of going into it with that mentality. But then I stepped into a different role, especially on that day, but also kind of stepping in really as being an instructor at times, because there were those students that were far behind the others and needed that one-on-one attention. For me specifically, I was helping with math, so learning their counting numbers and learning addition and subtraction and trying to get them into the rhythm of that and teaching them that uno and one are the same thing. And so it was, like I said, a very rewarding experience, but kind of seeing where everyone is at in different levels was something that was really interesting to me.
My experience was completely different than what I was expecting, but it was in a positive way, because I worked with older children. I was in a 7th grade class. My teacher was Molly Pilak, who was an Aquinas alumni. I worked with 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds, and these kids already know English at this point. They are already bilingual. They already fluent in both. And I helped with more core value kind of things. Like, it helped with math, I helped with science, I helped with English, but not in the same way that you would teach a child who is only fluent in Spanish. More of the way like we grew up learning English, and the way that we grew up taking like regular math classes and all of that. And I really enjoyed my time there. It was pretty crazy some days, because at the beginning of the semester I volunteered on Fridays, and then I had to change it to Wednesdays. But I remember my Friday volunteer sessions were, it's the end of the week, these kids want to go home, they want to enjoy their weekend. So it was a lot of running around, but it was, they kept me on my toes, and it was a lot of fun.
I'd have to agree with both Azra and Hannah on this and say that I had a lot more one-on-one time than I had expected when I went into it, which turned out to be a very good thing. I got to get to know all of the kids on these different levels. There were also a few things that were a little different than I was expecting, just in the way that the school was run compared to schools that I've been in. The level of the involvement of the parents, for example, was really cool to see, and it was a really interesting experience to be able to be a part of, because in the mornings when the students have breakfast, a lot of the parents actually sit with them. So I had the chance to talk to the parents and see, how they interact with their kids, and the level of involvement, like even when we're sending work home with the kids or sending their things home, like the parents always send back notes, and they're expected to kind of comment and partake in all of these different processes, both like during the school day and after. So that was a really cool, kind of unexpected thing that I didn't have in my school when I was younger, and so that was a really kind of cool thing to see for the first time.
First of all, I would like to, as Hispanic, live in this community, congratulate you for what you've been doing, okay? There's one particular part that you mentioned, Hannah, about changing the mentality of, instead of charity, solidarity, and I think that's the right direction, because that's one of the big issues when helping Hispanic communities. Now, it will call my attention that you said you are a major in business, right? Mm-hmm. So, and you were acting as an agent of change in the community. So what kind of situations, from the business perspective, do you think you confront some sort of resistance into that change that you were trying to impose in certain things?
Initially, when I came to Aquinas, I was an education major. And my mom is a teacher. She works for Holland Public Schools, and she's a kindergarten teacher. So this environment was something that I was very much used to. And then I switched to the business field, so now going along tracks with my dad. And so I think that the skills and the things that I've had to do in that classroom are very transferable into the business world. I think that in any situation, you are going to walk into something that is A, completely what you expected, or B, which is B is more often than not, something that you did not expect. And you're going to have to learn how to change and adapt to that situation. And groups of people that you work with, especially in business, are so different from one another. Everyone comes from a different background, has a different perspective. And so I feel like this has been rewarding for me to work with these kids, but it's also been a very important lesson in working in a different community, learning about, though I am Hispanic myself, I didn't necessarily grow up going to Cesar Chavez. I went to Zealand, totally different community than there. And so it's very interesting for me to kind of connect with the Cesar Chavez community, learn so much about it, and be able to see how I can transfer those skills and things that I've done there into the business world.
Just in case of those Hispanics, is you guys are second generation, third generation? And I'm asking this just for the sense of research. I mean, it's a topic that in business we give a lot of value to if you are first, second, or third generation on Hispanics. And just to give me an idea, in your case, you were born here in the States?
Yes.
All right. And who else? You too, right?
I was born here in the States.
Okay.
I'm second generation.
Second generation. Anybody? You too?
I was born in Germany. I'm Bosnian, so
okay.
Spanish has always just been something that I've always enjoyed learning. So
Okay.
I really connect with the culture, and I love the language, but I'm not actually Hispanic myself.
Got it. What about you?
I am not Hispanic either. I'm kind of a mix of
Interesting.
German, Polish, Native American, and English.
All right.
So I
Thanks so
just
much.
am passionate
Thanks.
about the culture.
So, Shelley, how much Spanish should a student have behind them before they come into this experience? Or in the case of like the middle school program, when it's more English speaking, I mean, really how much immersion in Spanish should a student have?
If they're enrolled in this particular class, it's for Spanish majors and minors, so they need to have a solid level because of our readings are a majority in Spanish. But for either of the schools, you do not have to know Spanish. They still need the volunteers to have the one-on-one time with the students. Yet, San Juan Diego, the majority of the students there do come from monolingual Spanish-speaking families, and especially for kids who are recent immigrants, having a Spanish level is very helpful, especially if trying to communicate with parents who don't have English skills. The same thing with Cesar Chavez. Yet at Cesar Chavez, the school is taught bilingually, whereas at San Juan Diego, it's only taught in English. So once again, if a student wants to volunteer and they don't have high Spanish skills, that's all right, because both schools still need the help.
I'm curious, what did you find to be the most challenging aspect of this experience?
I think for me, something that was challenging for me, it wasn't a challenge for me as much as it was for them, just seeing a new face in their classroom, especially a face that doesn't look quite like theirs. I had one girl ask me, ¿Por qué eres blanca? Why are you white? So just for them, kind of seeing that I look a little bit different from them, but then at the same time being surprised that I speak their language, and they could see that I really was trying. I wasn't having them, speak English to me. I was trying my best to speak Spanish with them, and use the Spanish lesson plan from the teacher to teach them. So for them, it was just, I think, a new face that doesn't quite look like theirs. Having me, it definitely took them a little time to warm up to me. They loved me after a few more times, once they became more familiar with my presence in the classroom. They really loved having me. Even now when I come in, they all run up at once and they give me hugs. But at the beginning, I think it just that exposure to someone maybe that doesn't look quite like them, and just being surprised because they're kindergartners, they're 5 years old, that someone that doesn't look like them can speak their language and can really try hard to really be there alongside them to help them learn.
I think my challenge was dealing with teenagers, and I'm joking, but The kids were all very pleasant. I really enjoyed working with them. At the beginning of the semester, it was hard connecting with them at first because, they're going through a different age, different time period than kindergartners and first graders. They're all going through puberty, experiencing hormones. They all have, it's probably like a confusing time for them. And their teacher, Molly, who, actually my friend, I don't know, I guess we have mutual friends, and I didn't know that till I met her through this program. Molly isn't a Spanish-speaking teacher, and I don't think I think the kids assumed that I didn't speak Spanish either. And then when they would talk to each other in Spanish, I would kind of like pipe in and talk to them in Spanish, and that's how I slowly made my integration into the classroom and started connecting with them. And finally, towards the end of the semester, I felt welcomed by them. But I think my challenge in the beginning was first trying to make myself connect with 13-year-olds.
I think that my biggest challenge was during the lesson, there would be specific key words that, though you would want to try and teach them that word in Spanish, you would have to say it in English. And to watch someone who completely has no idea what you're saying, to have to repeat that word over and over and over again and try and show them in different ways without saying that word in Spanish, that's really challenging and really frustrating because they so quickly want to give up. I remember Liliana looking at me one day, and in Spanish she was like, "No, I like this other way. It's easier. I'm going to say this number." And I was like, "This is 4." And she was like, "No, it's 5." I was like, "Liliana, come on, work with me here." But that's really frustrating for them, but it's also really frustrating for me because I'm like, I want to tell them 5 in Spanish, cinco, that's the number, you're right, but they can't think of that word, they can't process that quite yet. So to kind of watch them struggle along that process was a little challenging for me, honestly, because I want to help them as much as I possibly can, but in the same way, like telling them it in Spanish isn't going to help them learn the English word either. So that was probably the most challenging part for me.
I think in my experience, the most challenging aspect was probably similar to Azra's. The students were all just very, very shy for the first few weeks, so they wouldn't even look up at me to talk to me the first couple weeks. But as they got more used to me and they warmed up, they became very friendly and started kind of all mobbing me with hugs the second I walked in the door and getting very excited every time they saw me in the hallway or in the classroom. So that kind of developed over time to not being a challenging aspect.
Thank you so much for coming to our talk today. We really appreciate it.